Okay, it's Wednesday, February 8th, and I wanted to do an analysis on Roku stock. Right now, I'm looking at the weekly chart of Roku. And first of all, you can see here that Roku has been a stock that's been in a tremendous downtrend for a long time. So it's always going to be tricky to kind of know when it officially turns and starts back up again. But what you had happen here towards the end of the year is finally you had a big displacement to the downside. You could just see the powerful move, followed by an immediate big displacement to the upside, which actually got above this high here and kind of changed the structure from down to up. And that's the first time that's happened, ever since the stock's been in a downtrend. And that's usually a sign when structure changes. So, this is the weekly time frame. So now the question is, it came all the way up for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks in a row. It hit targets here, which I'll show you are key monthly targets. So now it's just pausing on the weekly chart. So ideally what this means is you're going to look for the next buy signal to head higher, because if we look at the longer term time frame, the monthly chart, well, it's not as spread out as it could be here, or it is, but there's basically all kinds of monthly targets, one after the other if this thing should start up again. A lot of short covering and new buying and everything else. So it kind of did its job on the first move up. In other words, this monthly bar was a two down bar. It moved the low of the prior month, and then this month moved above the high. So it just targeted, when you get a broadening action above the high of a bar, runs to the next target. In this case, there were 3 monthly bars right in a row here, which it should have targeted, and it immediately reached that, and now it's pausing. So really, from a broadening standpoint, it's done all it needed to do. In other words, it moved up to these are the monthly highs right here, a whole bunch of them. So really the ideal buy, just looking at it just for a moment, was a buy before you felt that those were, you looked at high probability these highs were going to take it out. And that was that inside bar right here at the beginning of the month. That was a typical signal, inside bar, buy the breakout. And within 3 days, it moved all the way up, from like 10 points to, and it took out those targets. So that was the ideal buy. Ever since then, on the daily chart, you've had no buy signals. It's been down, a little bit of a attempted, choppy reversal yesterday, but no buy. Then today down, but all it is right now is it's in the daily chart. It's in the fair value gap, between the high of this bar and the low of this bar. You can see inefficient pricing in here in this rectangle. So we're just filling that in at the moment. And ideally, you'd get another buy signal, some kind of 2 up bar. That'll be the next buy signal on the daily chart, and that would be a good sign. What I think is ideal, though, for this stock, and I'd like to see, is it kind of pause this week a little bit, somewhere in here, like it's doing now, have an inside week. And then at this point, then you look for the buy into next week, either a 2 up bar and it takes out the high of the previous week with a target back to those highs. Or when I see an inside bar, I'm always looking for failures, meaning, you kind of have an inside bar, you break to the downside, but you don't really go to any, the next target. And then you immediately come up through the midpoint of that bar. That's a great buy signal on a 2 down failure on an inside bar that should then work to the top of the range. And once that's hit, then you kind of hit, the top of that first move that it made last week again. So we'll see what happens, but this pause is pretty normal here. And right now, at least for now, it's comfortably in just rebalancing out the daily chart. Now, what sometimes happens here on these, if you look in the bigger picture, you get that displacement down, displacement up. So the structure's changed to the upside, but there was inefficient pricing on the way down. There's kind of a gap in here. There was inefficient pricing on the way up, and they overlap a little bit. So sometimes price will want to maybe come all the way back down into this area before it eventually on the weekly chart reverses up. I hope that doesn't happen, but you never know. I mean, you just got to follow price action. Whatever is going to happen, though, the structure is still up, and it's going to take almost a 2 down month, like a month where we kind of close red and then go 2 down into next month, March, to really fail this chart again. So we'll stick with the upside bias. I think any good daily buy coming up would be a good buy. I actually prefer to see it on the weekly chart, given 5 weeks in a row up and a little bit of pausing. Then I'd love to see a daily buy, a daily high that then kind of sets up a chain reaction to a weekly buy that sets up a weekly, chain reaction to the weekly target. So we'll see what happens, but that's kind of Roku stock the way I see it. And we will see, in the days and weeks ahead when it can find that buying signal, and hopefully keep this month green. That's what we want to see. If we could eventually, start up again, this month will begin to get green again to the upside, and that will kind of keep that open stable. We want to see that open, kind of be the low of the month if possible. And once it starts up again, if it can get going, then you see a big pivot machine gun to take out all kinds of stops above if it wants to take off. Also, I think there are earnings coming up. I'll have to look up the date. That's going to obviously, like any stock, could be a kind of a big factor in whatever happens, and it's kind of a risk both, one way or the other. But at least for now, this kind of move here, this displacement down and up with the 2 up month in force now, has some, if we just get the daily short-term signals kind of pointing up, there's a lot of potential in this stock. So we'll see what unfolds.